I welcome all of you to this presentation on test in education, meaning and concept. In my earlier presentations on paper 1, discussing about the meaning and concept of measurement and evaluation, we learnt that test is an instrument of measurement in education. It is a means of measurement in education. Here we will discuss about test in details. Purpose of this presentation is to throw light on the following dimensions of test. What is a test? What is a psychological test? Definition of test? What are its characteristics? What is the purpose of a test? And how it is classified on the basis of various criterias. Now let us start with some general information about the test. The term test is used commonly in a variety of situations in a day-to-day life. We use it as a medical test to examine a body, to check a health. We often use it as a test of times, test of difficult situations, testing an equipment or process. Apart from these usages, we commonly use it in school, which implies a series of questions on the basis of which some information is sought, or we can say it is an accumulation of data on a person's ability. It may be an exercise or a set of questions, or in better words we can say it is a tool, technique or a method intended to measure individuals' knowledge, skill or ability. But is this all? Is this enough to define a psychological test? Or is there something else which must be added here? Now we will move on to the definition of test, because only after surveying various definitions of test we will come to know about the characteristics of a psychological test. There are numerous definitions of a test. Various thinkers and psychologists have defined it in their own way. Here we will discuss two of them, that is of Freeman and Beans. Freeman says a psychological test is a standardized instrument designed to measure objectively one or more aspects of total personality by means of verbal or non-verbal responses or by means of other behavior. Here the term standardize highlights and discriminate a psychological test from a general understanding of a test. Further, we can see it measures objectively. The term objectively puts a lot of expectations from a psychological test. Then it measures one or more aspects of total personality. Here in psychological measurement, we measure one or more aspects of a total personality of a student by means of verbal or non-verbal responses or by means of other behavior. These are the various means, these are the various types of items which a test may be made up of. Now looking at the definition by Bean, he states that a test is an organized succession of stimuli designed to measure quantitatively or to evaluate qualitatively some mental process, trait or characteristic. Here the phrase an organized succession of stimuli implies that the questions of a test are arranged in some organized order. They are arranged in some order. Designed to measure quantitatively or to evaluate qualitatively, that means that both quantitative and qualitative measures are employed in a test. Some mental process, trait or characteristic, to measure some mental process, some personality trait or some characteristic of a student. Now looking at the characteristics of a test, on the basis of the discussion on the definitions of test, we can derive certain characteristics of a test. Test is an organized series of questions. The test questions or the set of questions in a test are arranged in some order. They may be arranged in increasing order of difficulty or they are all of average difficulty level depending upon the objective of the test. Test is a standardized procedure. It means administration and scoring of a test is uniform and objective. The test is reliable as well as valid. It has norms to support its raw scores. It measures individuals' mental and behavioral traits. Mental traits like intelligence, aptitudes, and attitude. His behavioral traits, his personality traits like his covert or overt behavior, his responses in various situations. Both quantitative and qualitative measurement is possible. It employs both quantitative and qualitative techniques for assessment. It measures through a sample of person's behavior. A psychological test cannot measure a trait directly, so it measures through a sample of person's behavior. Now, what is the purpose of a test? A test has twofold purpose: to compare the same individual on two or more than two traits. For example, to test the adjustment of student in various areas like home, school, neighborhood, and society. Next is to compare two or more than two person on the same trait. For example, comparing students on the basis of the IQ test, aptitude test, etc. Now let us see how do we classify a test. What are the criteria on the basis of which a psychological test can be classified? Criteria of purpose, criteria of administrative condition, criteria of nature of questions, criteria of time limit, criteria of scoring, criteria of standardization. These are the main criteria on the basis of which a test can be. In further slides, each criteria has been dealt exclusively. Criteria of purpose. Depending upon the aim and objective of the test, a test can be classified as intelligence test, aptitude test, personality test, adjustment test, interest test, achievement test, etc. On the basis of administrative condition, a test can be classified as individual test and group test. Individual test is one which is administered individually. It requires constant attention of the examiner. Limitation is that it is very much time consuming and requires trained and experienced examiners, whereas a group test is administered to more than one person at a time in a group. It is more easy, more efficient to manage it, and it is less time consuming. Criteria of nature of items, questions. Items of a test are the questions put up in the test. So on the basis of the content of the test, we can say that test can be classified as verbal test, non-verbal test, performance test. Verbal test emphasizes reading, writing, and oral expressions. In this, use of language is there, but in a non-verbal test, items are of symbols, pictures, and figures. Only for giving instructions, language is used, and performance test requires task performance. There may be some manipulative task to be done, some puzzle to be assembled, some pictures to be put correctly in order, or to find some missing part, so to compare the pictures, etc. So in this, there is no use of language. Only a manipulative task is given, which is to be done. Criteria of time limit. On the basis of time limit, a test can be classified as power test and speed test. Power test, items are arranged in increasing order of difficulty and ample amount of time is given to the candidate to perform the test. Whereas in a speed test, the questions are of average difficulty level, but time limit is very limited. Criteria of scoring. On the basis of scoring of the items of the test is classified as objective test and subjective test. In objective test, questions are of objective nature. like true and false, matching, MCQs, etc., in which scoring is done very objectively, whereas in a subjective test in which essay type questions are given, subjective element is there and there is no objectivity in scoring of the test. Criteria of standardization. On the basis of standardization, we can classify a test as teacher made test and standardized test. A teacher made test is a set of questions on whatever is taught in class. It is a test of the subject taught. But a standardized test is one which has specific objective, specific instructions for administration and scoring. It is reliable and valid. Reliability implies that there is consistency of scores. Validity means that it measures what it claims to measure. Apart from this, a standardized test is supported by norms. Now, these are the criterias of a test, various criterias on the basis of which the test can be classified. Further, the process of standardization will be explained in a next presentation. In my next presentation on criteria of a good test, the standardization procedure will be explained in detail. So thank you very much.